Our opening words this morning are called Remedial Dimension Survival Plan, Part 1, by Deepa Phillips. Prescription for sanity in the present atmosphere. Light your candles. Practice your skills. Order your medicines. Pack your we out bag. Put a little cash aside. Save some seeds. Learn your self-defense. Increase your stamina. Memorize folks' numbers. Strategize your plans. Call upon your history. Prepare your long game. Learn and share. Return to your library. Live your praxis. Parent your babies. Pray your hardest. Make your art. Soak in music. Document your stories. Run yourself salt baths. Dance until you're sweaty. Let your tears flow. Be soft with yourself. Dig your hands in this earth. Wash yourself in seawater. Walk amidst grandmother trees. Root yourself there. Kiss your lover. Breathe from your belly. Sit on your cushion. Remember your laughter. Remind yourself who you are. Call your family. Gather your team. Get with your people. Lean on your ancestors. Do your work now. Do your work now. Join a new church community. Some are new to faith, some are new to this church, and some people are new to church, period. For over 175 years now, people have arrived here at First Church seeking a place to belong, seeking a place where they could find deeper meaning together than they could find alone. Today we're welcoming a new stream of members who just completed our journey to membership class and signed our congregation's membership book and are now joining the generations of seekers here at First Church. Will our new members please come up and be in front of the chancel now? Bring your orders of service and your children with you.
Good morning and welcome. My name is Susan, this is Linda, and we're here representing the membership committee. And we're very glad that you're with us and that you've decided to join us, whatever your reason might be. So welcome. And today after the service, we're going to be having a little reception for you. So our new members, please come up and introduce yourself and welcome our new members. Ricky Thompson will also be taking photographs, so anyone who doesn't have their picture in the directory, you can have Ricky take it today, and please also have Ricky take your pictures today. And if there are any visitors with us today, Lynn Jacoby will be heading up a new membership, Journey to Membership class, and that will be starting in April. So you can, at the coffee hour, stop by the membership table and you can find information about that. So again, welcome. And now Linda is going to share a little something that the membership put together that explains or expresses how we feel about First Church and what our hope is for you.
May you find a spiritual home here and new friends who are open to your energy, your beliefs, and your doubts. May you find compassion, trust, and challenge, a touchstone to help you, and a strong pull toward generosity and action. Finally, we wish you the same sense of expansion that we have experienced in this community, a growing love for ourselves, for others, for the spirit of life, and for our beautiful earth. May you be nurtured here, may your minds be engaged, and may this community help you and inspire you to bring more of your own love into our world. Welcome. And now if you would please introduce yourselves to the congregation by saying your full name with the microphone close to your mouth so we can all know who you are. Justin?
Justin Pischke.
Joby Clark.
Ryan.
Barbara Lee.
Mike McDermott.
New members, it's so wonderful to have you. Will you now enter into covenant with our congregation by saying our covenant? Will you go ahead and repeat after me? We enter this congregation with hope and possibility in our hearts.
We enter this congregation with hope and possibility in our hearts.
Pledging to participate in and support the ministries of this church. They're doing great, aren't they? I'll do a little shorter this time. We covenant to dwell together in peace.
We covenant to dwell together in peace.
To seek the truth in love.
To seek the truth in love.
And to help one another. We seek your welcome as we join you in this faith. Congregation, will you please rise in body or spirit and give them the covenantal welcome. You can also repeat after me. We welcome you as we were once welcomed ourselves.
We welcome you as we once welcomed ourselves.
We bid you welcome who come with weary spirits seeking rest.
We bid you welcome who come with weary spirits seeking rest.
We bid you welcome who come with hope in your heart.
We bid you welcome who come with hope in your heart.
We bid you welcome who are seekers of a new faith.
We bid you welcome who are seekers of a new faith.
We bid you welcome who enter this hall as a homecoming.
We bid you welcome who enter this hall as a homecoming.
Who find in this people a family.
Who find in this people a family.
Let's give our new members a round of applause. You may be seated. I'd like to invite you in now to a time of contemplation, which will be followed by silence, followed by the seated singing of Spirit of Life. So go ahead and do whatever you need to do to be comfortable in your body. Maybe you feel your feet on the floor grounding you. Maybe you feel the top of your head connecting you to all that is. Maybe you let your breath move in and out of your belly and bring you into being here and now. Spirit of life and love, Holy One of our being and our becoming, that which is sacred within, among, and beyond us. When life shovels the worst at us, may we still be able to remember the best it has to offer. May we build our resilience, not through shutting down, but through staying present to what is now. The sorrow and the beauty, the awfulness and the love. When our understanding of terrible resets, may we also again recalibrate our lives to what really matters. May we carefully, intentionally tend to these things. Tend to love, tend to beauty, tend to truth. May it be so.
During my many years as a divorced single woman, my well-meaning partner friends like to say things to me like this: someone is going to come along when you least expect it. You're going to know the right person when he comes along. These comments felt trite to me, and frankly, they made me want to punch someone. I was on and off of online dating sites for about 6 years. If any of you have tried online dating, then you probably already know that it isn't for the faint of heart. In fact, for the most part, it really stinks. I went on a lot of first and sometimes second dates. At one point, it felt as if I had dated every available middle-aged man in a 90-mile radius of Milwaukee. Not to mention a few who lived out of state. I can't say that it was all bad. Once I got past the pictures of men holding fish, leaning against their flashy cars, and the oh-so-creative bare-chested selfie in the bathroom mirror, I actually really met some really lovely men. I had some fun and even made a few friends. Over time, however, it became demoralizing. I was ghosted, stood up multiple times, told that my hair was too short, my demeanor too reserved, and my body not athletic enough, among other indignities. Things just got stinkier as I went along. I tried the picky approach, carefully curating my options, but eventually grew frustrated. Then I tried the give every guy a chance approach, which seemed endless. I tweaked my profile and changed up my pictures, but the quality of my dates was declining, along with my attitude. They both stunk. I felt my heart beginning to close off. My stink meter was maxed out, so I decided to give it a rest. What I did then, without setting the intention to do so, was to begin to build my life as if the right person would not come along. I bought my first set of new living room furniture for the first time as a grown-up and hosted more social gatherings. I started to turn my interest in social and racial justice into activism. I read books, went to workshops, rallies, marches, and volunteered. I ramped up with my involvement with my boys' activities and even took them to New York City to see their favorite band. I also made the life-altering decision to end my long-term relationship with wine. While focusing on trying to find a partner, I had been neglecting the connection that mattered the most, the one with myself. Living as if I would be forever single allowed me to create a life that I loved and felt proud of. I worked on strengthening the muscle called resilience. That muscle was strengthened not by continuing to put myself in the path of disappointments, which was creating a calloused heart, but by putting my values and attention toward things that are life-affirming and generative. As I came around to myself, I came around to softening my heart to love. To my delight, someone did come along when I least expected it. And thankfully, I've never had to see a picture of him holding dead wildlife. Becoming someone that I wanted to spend time with, rather than looking for that person, has made all the difference. I have more confidence now that my life can be full with or without a partner, and believe that I am a better partner for having spent that time doing the work of loving myself first.
When Dr. B.J. Miller, palliative care physician and current executive director at the Zen Hospice Project, was a sophomore in college, he had the regular worries of a sophomore in college: his social life, his studies, what to do with his future. And then one night, when he was out with a group of his friends, they decided to climb on top of a parked train car. BJ climbed up the back ladder of the active train, and when he got on top of it and stood up, his left arm touched the live wire powering the train, and 11,000 volts of electricity shot through his body and out his feet. In that moment, BJ's life changed. So did his relationship with death and with pain. He went from being a regular kid in college to spending his days and his nights in hospitals. He lost part of his left arm and both of his legs, and he faced the possibility of losing his life. As a 20-year-old, BJ now knew death and loss and pain quite closely. One of our worship associates, Mark Richards, shared with us that in the Army there's a saying called resetting your stink meter, about events in life that teach you a new level of something really stinking. Now, just FYI, the real Army phrase, which some of you know, is resetting your suck meter. But for the purposes of the pulpit and this sermon, I'm just going to say stink throughout the sermon, or this is the worst meter, okay? So if you're on a metered 1 to 10 scale of this stinks and your 10 is a broken leg, when you get electrocuted and you lose both your legs, it resets your stink meter. Now 10 is getting electrocuted and losing 3 limbs and almost dying. Breaking your leg on that stink meter is really more like a 3. It's kind of like when at first your this is the worst meter was at a 10 when a white nationalist was elected to office. And then your this is the worst meter was at a 10 when children were being put in cages at the border. And then your worst meter was at a 10 when some of those children started dying. And then your worst meter was at a 10 when the rules of democracy were violated repeatedly. And then your worst meter was at a 10 when accountability to those rules seemingly no longer applied. It's been kind of a rough week, yeah? It can be frightening to worry about where the this is the worst meter's bottom is located. Situations that reset your stink meter, by definition, stink. They are nasty, awful, painful experiences. No one wants to suffer, and no amount of reframing that suffering will take it away. That said, there are many different ways that human beings respond to suffering, and we do get to choose our reactions even if we cannot choose our circumstances. Suffering can build capacity and create perspective. It can broaden the heart's resilience and help a person realize what it is that really matters in life. But suffering can also create post-traumatic stress. It can cause people to shut down. It can put callouses on the heart, like Amy referred to, and cause us to check out. In the 1950s, the psychiatrist Robert J. Lifton developed a term that he called psychic numbing to describe one coping strategy for suffering. Lifton was studying the survivors of the 2 atomic bombs that the United States dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. He found that the survivors of those bombings engaged in psychic numbing in order to survive the trauma they experienced. Since then, research into the phenomenon has found that at an individual level, psychic numbing is often a function of post-traumatic stress. It's a coping mechanism that individuals can develop to put some distance between themselves and the trauma. However, Lifton was more interested in studying that phenomenon at a collective level. He was interested in the question, what do societies do when they are faced with mass trauma or mass threat? Lifton's work, which was continued by Paul Slovic, found that at the societal level, groups of people turn away from events or problems that feel too overwhelming. Things like climate change or nuclear war or, say, I don't know, the dissolution of U.S. democracy. When something is too much, we numb ourselves to cope. In the phenomenon of psychic numbing, it's repeated exposure to the same overwhelmingly negative stimuli that increases the impulse to ignore that stimuli. This can look like numbing, not feeling at all, but it can also look like getting used to the new reality. It's one of the ways that societies can slowly creep from democracy to fascism. It's dangerous. And yet, remember, it's also very human and very understandable as a coping mechanism to collective stress. Our brains do it because we cannot live at the level of hypervigilance every single day, day in and day out. It's not possible, and it's certainly not recommended for the body or for the brain to sit at the intersection of outrage and hyper-arousal constantly. Dissociation is a coping mechanism to get our bodies back into a functioning state. So what do we do? Where is the balance between being aware of what is going on around us, alert to the new thing that has reset our "this is the worst" meter, and also still be able to function on a day-to-day reality? The author and theologian Frederick Buechner wrote that, quote, "Idolatry is the practice of ascribing absolute value to things of relative worth. Under certain circumstances, money, patriotism, family loyalty, physical health, social or intellectual prominence, and so on are fine things to have around. But to make them the standard by which all of our other values are measured, to make them your masters, to look to them to justify your life and save your soul is sheerest folly. Those things just are not up to the task. So what is up to the task? What really matters? What, at the end of the day, will justify our lives? What is up to our lives being measured by it? In Dr. B.J. Miller's TED Talk, What Really Matters at the End of Life, based on his work in palliative and hospice care, he said that the most important things to people who are closer to death are comfort, not feeling like a burden to the people that they love, existential peace, and a sense of wonderment and spirituality. Due to his encounter with the train, Dr. Miller had his own experience of being closer to death and discovering in that time what really mattered. One night during his recovery, when he was in a burn unit in a New Jersey hospital, and it was still unclear whether he would live or die, BJ overheard the nurses around him complaining about having had to drive through the snow to get to work that night. Now, there were no windows in BJ's hospital room, but he was having a wonderful time just imagining the snow outside, in his words, coming down all sticky. The next day, one of the nurses smuggled a snowball into the unit to share with him, and Miller said, "I cannot tell you the rapture I felt holding it in my hand, the coldness dripping down my burning skin, the miracle of it all, the fascination as I watched it melt and turn into water. In that moment, just being part of this planet in this universe mattered to me more than whether I lived or died. That little snowball packed all the inspiration I needed to both try to live and to be okay if I did not." In the light of death, in the light of the worst things, sometimes we can get perspective. People get clear on what really matters to them and what is really not up to the task of measuring one's life by. The Australian writer and former palliative care worker Bronnie Ware wrote a memoir based on her experience working with dying people, in which she shared the 5 consistent regrets that she heard from the people that she worked with. 1, I wish that I'd had the courage to live a life true to myself and not the life that other people expected of me. 2, I wish I didn't work so hard. 3, I wish that I'd had the courage to express my real feelings. 4, I wish I'd stayed in better touch with my friends. And 5, I wish I'd let myself be happier. Happiness, love, authenticity, truth, feelings. These are the things people said were worth measuring their lives by. Dr. Miller said that in that Zen hospice guest house in San Francisco, quote, "the most poignant room is the kitchen." Now, this is a place where many of the patients can't eat or can only eat a very little bit. But the kitchen remained a place of meaning because it was a place of comfort, a place of tending to the body and to the spirit through tending to the senses. Dr. Miller explained that even if people couldn't eat, they still took comfort from the smell of the food. Seriously, he said, with all the heavy-duty stuff happening underneath our roof, one of the most tried and true interventions we know of is to bake cookies. As long as we have our senses, he said, even just one, we have at least the possibility of accessing what makes us feel human and connected. And there is the slim bridge between maintaining awareness without slipping into hyperarousal on one side or numbing out on the other. Tending to the body and the spirit through the senses, through being present, tending carefully, mindfully, to what really matters, to the life around us, protecting it as best we can without sending our bodies overboard either into panic or into shutdown. We have to be able to stay awake and aware in order to notice what has changed, what is happening around us, to know the new worst that is right now, to not shut down to that truth. But we also must be able to maintain a commitment to human dignity through tending to the life that is now, including our own. Timothy Snyder, Yale history professor and author of the book Black Earth, The Holocaust as History and Warning, gives advice to Americans today about resisting authoritarianism. His advice includes slowing down and paying attention to what's happening around us. He advises practicing politics in the body, going out and meeting new people, deliberately making eye contact and having conversations with the people in our neighborhoods. He says we have to stay in touch with our surroundings so that we can stay calm if and when the worst happens, so we know how to ground in the now, in relationships and awareness, that we might be able to be useful in a crisis. It's good advice, no matter what the worst is, whether it's death or electrocution or fascism. When the worst meter gets recalibrated to some new low, we can choose to refocus our attention on the best of what life is, what really matters, what's worth living for and dying for. It's important for us to know what matters most to us, what's worth measuring our lives by, so that we don't shut down or go overboard or give up. So if you're facing the worst, go ahead and breathe. Go ahead and take the time to smell the flowers literally, or the cookies. Pay attention to your body and to the bodies of the people around you. Tend to them. Tend to your hearts and your spirits. This is what's worth fighting for. Fight for democracy, yes, but do so as a commitment to a long and sustained way of living resistance for the things that are worth living for. Know your people. Know your community. Play with wide-eyed children. Connect with the ones that you love. Feel the wind on your neck and smell the lake. Find beauty and meaning in this life right now, because that is what we do the work for. Reconnect with it every day so that you know what it is that's worth it. The poet Michael Leunig wrote, "When the heart is cut or cracked or broken, do not clutch it, but let the wound lie open. Let the wind from the good old sea blow in to bathe the wound with salt and let it sting. Let a stray dog lick it. Let a bird lean into the hole and sing a simple song like a tiny bell, and let it ring. May it be so." Please rise in body and spirit clearly. Our responsive reading this morning is excerpted from a poem on tending in the midst of destruction by Reverend Anna Bladel. I'll begin. Everything is falling apart too fast and too soon. Naira Wahid whispers into the whirlwind. 2, make sure the moon is fed.
3, bathe the ocean.
4, warm sing the trees.
10,
And who has time for these luxuries?
and who are waiting to think we can make it without?
And today I will make giant pot after giant pot of vegan soup to feed students through the coming weeks of winter, because for now it still gets bone cold here.
And today I will take a walk under fallen leaves with my lover's hand up in mine.
Because the ceiling is falling. And I awoke convinced that only a walk outside, and the only thing I know is to tend to the small, the slow, the simple. This pungent ginger root. This butternut squash. Tend, 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 tend. This afternoon's walk. Tend this life.
So gorgeous and holy and horrible and over all too soon.
Will you join